Perik Aleph Halacha Dalet. Hilchos Megillah. Ezus man kriyosa. When is the time of reading the Megillah? Zmanim habei tiknu lo chachomim. There are many times that Chachomim established for Kriyas Megillah. Shenema, they based it on what it says in Esther Tes Bizmanehem. We'll go down to the Rambam, to Peirush, and it says Ezus man kriyosa. When do you read it? What day of the week of the month of Elul? Zmanim habei. And since it says Bismaneim, it means a lot of times. The Elohen Zmani Kriyosa. The Rambam continues, these are them. Kol Medina, in Medina in their times was a city. There were city states that had that had a wall around it in the days of Yeshua ben Nun. Bein Boaz, Bein B'chutz Loretz, whether it was in Eretz Yisrael or in Chutz Loretz. Even though today or at that time of Shushan it did not have a wall. Maybe on the 15th. This a nation is called a krach because it has a wall around it. And if it did not have a wall around it at the time of the days of Yeshua, even though it has a wall today, you read on the 14th. Medina Zuhi and Ekras Ia. This Medina is called a city. Now, the Maggid Mishnah cites the sources Megillah Beis 2a. That Megillah is read on the 11th of the month. We'll see why. The 12th, the 13th, the 14th, and the 15th. The Gemara says, there are many times that the Chacham established. In the Mishnah, it says that walled cities, in the days of Miyamois, you know, if it says Miyamois, in the Mishnah is a Mem, and the Rambam says Biyamois, in the days of. Read on the 15th. What the Rambam adds, whether it's in Israel or Chutz Loretz, so writes the Ramban and the Rajba, they bring proofs to this, and that's the Halacha. When she says even a person that doesn't have or even that they don't have a wall today, that's also in Megillah Gimel 2. I'll just add here two things. Why do they do it? I saw in Svarim that the reason is that if they thought Ezra was hoping that all the Yidden would come back to build the Beis HaMikdash. When it says Ad Chatziyam Malchus, it means the building of the Beis HaMikdash. And if everybody came back and there were no walled cities in Eretz Yisrael at the time, then there would be no place to read the Megillah on the 15th. Therefore, they established it Mimois Yeshua ben Nun, and Yerushalayim already was a walled city because we find the Malki Tzedek Melech Sholem that even in the time of Aram, Yerushalayim was already a walled city, and therefore they did it according to that time, so you should be able to have both days commemorated throughout, even the future when they come back to Eretz Yisrael. And therefore, it was established both for Eretz Yisrael and for Chutz Loretz. We're continuing with Hilchos Megillah and Perik Aleph Halacha Hey. Shushan Abira, the city of Shushan. Although the wall of Shushan Abira only happened later, there you do read on the 15th. So we'll go down to the Peirush. Why? Because that's an excluded. There the Nes took place. And most people don't realize that the Nes of Purim, that the Nes took place the night of Pesach, actually. Well, the war took place at the end of the year. Shenema, it says, V'noyah b'chamisha osa boy, and there it says, in Shushan, they rested on the 15th. And they fought on the 14th. In other words, in all the other cities, they fought on the 13th and rested on the 14th. In Shushan, they also fought on the 14th and rested on the 15th. And why did they cause the din of Yom Kovas Chayma in the Yemei of Yeshua? Because it depends, whether it was Mukav B'Yomov, in order to give cover to Eretz Yisrael. That was Chareva Bois Hazman. It was destroyed at that time. at the time of Mordechai and Esther. There were not any cities that were walled. They should read it as it was in the city of Shushan. They should be reckoned as cities that had walls, even though at the time of Purim they were destroyed. Since they were walled at the time of Yeshua. You read it on the 15th. For this nest. Shushan Ambira, the Maggid Mishnah cites Megillah, Cho Beizam and Beiz, that according to Yeshua ben Kocha, which is the opinion that a city that had a wall around it from the days of Achashverosh is called a walled city. And there too one would read on the 15th. And even according to those, that if it was the Yemei Yeshua, it's called a Krach and you read on the 15th, still in Shushan you read on the 15th. They also agree that in Shushan you read on the 15th because that's when the Ness happened. La Halacha we paskin that if it's surrounded Mimei Yeshua, you read on the 15th, and also in Shushan. So if somebody goes to Persia or Iran today, they would read in Shushan on the 15th. This is the opinion of the Rif. Why did they do it? The Rambam says the din that one has to have a walled city of the days of Yeshua. The Maggid Mishnah cites Yerushalmi, and the Torah in 688 says in the time of the Megillah it was read only today, when the Megillah is only read on the 14th, not on the 11th, 12th, and 13th. Just those that have walls read on the 15th, even though they are in Chutz La'aretz. And Beis Yosef cites brings from the Ran, since it has to do with the days of Yeshua, that's only in cities in Eretz Yisrael. But the Chutz La'aretz, even if they have walls, may Yeshua they would read on the 14th, because what does Yeshua have to do with Chutz La'aretz? But the Toys Yontif is of the opinion, Toys rather is of the opinion, that in Chutz La'aretz you read on the 15th. And Toys and the Ramban and the Rashba prove this from Megillah. Hey, 5b, Asi read the Megillah Hutzel on the 14th and the 15th, because he wasn't sure if it was had a wall for the days of Yeshua or not. Hutzel was in Chutz La'aretz, as we find in Ksubis 111a. The Ramban and Rashba proved that in Chutz La'aretz, a city that's surrounded by Moshe Yeshua, reads on the 15th. Beis Yosef pushes this off, that it says of Asi read the Megillah B'Hutzel the Binyamin, and therefore there's no proof about Chutz La'aretz, because Hutzel and Binyamin is obviously the portion of Binyamin was in Eretz Yisrael. The Ramban writes, Rabbi Yeshua ben Kocha disagrees with the Chachamim when it's surrounded with a wall, if it has to do according to the time of Yeshua or the time of Mordechai and Esther. But according to everyone, both in Eretz Yisrael and both in Chutz La'aretz, those that are surrounded read on the 15th. This Rae Gann disagrees with, and he proves in the Yerushalmi that a walled city that it was destroyed and became a city of Goyim, and it has a wall in Chutz La'aretz, you read on the 15th. That's what the Goyim say. The Beis Yosef cites that the Rambam read on the 15th, even according to the Rambam, even if they're in Chutz La'aretz. Now, why did we read on the 15th? To give from Yeshua, to give honor to Eretz Yisrael. The Maggid Mishnah cites the Yerushalmi, the Beis Yosef cites the Ran, that since they had to give COVID and make a differentiation between walled and unwalled cities, it's just like Shushan was different from other cities in Chutz La'aretz, the same happened in Eretz Yisrael. Now, if it would be dependent on the time of the days of Achashverosh, all of Eretz Yisrael were unwalled, was destroyed, and it would be a disparaging statement that there's no city that reads on the 15th. Therefore, it's told to be Yeshua, in order that the cities of Eretz Yisrael should be considered like walled cities. The Beis Yosef questions, and he says that did it in the Meir Yeshua because they would not make differentiation between those that are surrounded to those that are not surrounded. There would be no commemoration of the second miracle, which happened on the 15th, and like the Rambam says, there should be a commemoration at Yisrael in this miracle. And since he writes the concept of those that have walls before he writes the law of Shushan, it would seem that the rule of a walled city does not apply to it. When he writes in order they should read like Bnei Shushan, it doesn't mean that it depends on them, but it should be on the 15th the way they did it in Shushan where the nest took place. And what it says, why was it totally B'Meir Yeshua? Why was it totally B'Meir Yeshua? It means why do they make a differentiation from Yeshua to those who are afterwards? And then he says there should be a commemoration of Yisrael in the miracle of Purim, even though it was a Chutz La'aretz. They were Makabel Torah Shaval Peh and Chutz La'aretz. The Shulchan Aruch says, even if they're not walled now, you read on the 15th, even if they're in Chutz La'aretz, and even if they don't have 10 batlonim, that means people who sit and learn, which is an obligation in every city, and they're oiskim in Tzorchei Tzibur. Mishnah Berurah explains, at the time of the Nes it says that Yidden in every place fought on the 13th, and rested on the 14th. And they made it a day of rejoicing, of eating, drinking, and rejoicing. And Shushan, there was another day on the 14th that they could also do it. And they did a day of, and they rested on the 15th. And therefore, there were 2 days, separate days of rejoicing. Therefore, when Mordechai and Esther established with the Haskoma of the Machon Nesher HaGadol, which was basically the Sanhedrin, to establish Purim for generations, they divided it up into 2 days. And they should have said that everything from the days of Achashverosh should be on the 15th if they were walled, to give cover to Shushan. But since at that time the cities of Chutz La'aretz were more were considered greater than the cities of Eretz Yisrael, because there were no walled cities. Therefore, in order to give cover to Eretz Yisrael, that every city that was walled from the days of Yeshua should read in the 15th, even though today or at any time they did not have walls. And the other cities read on the 14th, except for Shushan, which is in Chutz La'aretz, even though it's not Mukev Eschayim Yos Yeshua, it was only established later. You read on the 15th because there the nest was. Sif Gimel, the Mechaber says, Kvorim Ayoros Gedolos, which means towns and large cities, or even municipalities that do not have walls, Moshe Yeshua, read on the 14th. We've concluded Halacha 5.